It was a bright spring morning, the kind that should have felt hopeful. Birds singing, sunlight spilling across the sleepy town of Ridgeview. But for Mason Reed, every sunrise felt like a countdown. Another day of working double shifts. Another day of pretending everything was fine for the sake of his 7-year-old daughter, Hope. The world had taken enough from him already. His wife to illness, his home to debt, and his peace to exhaustion. But Mason never complained. He woke up, tied his worn apron, and opened the doors to Bean and Blessings, the tiny cafe he ran with a cracked coffee machine and too many overdue bills. He never imagined that one small act of kindness, one spontaneous decision, would change everything. Not just his future, but the way he saw the meaning of love, second chances, and trust. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good hearts, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that remind the world how beautiful compassion can be. That morning, Mason noticed a woman sitting alone by the window. Her clothes were modest but neat, her hair tied in a messy bun that looked like it had seen too many sleepless nights. She stared out the window, her eyes glassy and distant. A half-empty cup of coffee sat untouched in front of her. She looked lost. Not in the way people do when they don't know directions, but in the way only heartbreak and exhaustion can make someone look. He walked over gently and asked if she was okay. The woman blinked, startled, then smiled faintly. "Oh yes, sorry, I just didn't sleep much. Do you mind if I sit here for a bit?" Mason smiled. "You can stay as long as you need. Coffee refills are free if you're fighting the world today." That made her laugh, just a small, quiet sound, but it carried something healing with it. "I might take you up on that," she murmured. Her name, she said, was Lena Hartman. She had just moved to town, looking for a fresh start. Though she didn't say from what, Mason didn't pry. He had learned the hard way that sometimes people didn't need questions. They just needed someone to listen. Over the next week, Lena became a quiet fixture at the cafe. She helped Mason wipe tables, refilled cups when the morning rush came, and even learned how to make Hope's favorite cinnamon cocoa. Mason didn't ask for her help, but she offered anyway, saying it gave her purpose. And truth be told, her presence made the place feel lighter, warmer. Hope adored her. But every time Mason tried to ask more about her life, what brought her here, where she was staying, Lena dodged the questions. She smiled and said things like, "Oh, it's complicated," or, "Let's not talk about me." Mason didn't push. He knew that look in her eyes, the one that came from being hurt before. Days turned into weeks. The cafe slowly became a little busier, thanks to Lena's quiet suggestions. Adding fresh flowers, a pay it forward board for free coffees, and a soft playlist that turned the shop into a haven. Mason started to feel hope again. He even caught himself humming some mornings, something he hadn't done since his wife passed. One evening, after closing time, Mason found Lena sitting at the counter, staring at an envelope in her hands. She looked troubled. When he asked if everything was okay, she just sighed and said softly, "Mason, you're a good man. You deserve good things. Don't stop believing in that." He didn't understand what she meant then, but something about her tone, sad, almost guilty, lingered. The next morning, Lena didn't show up. Her usual corner by the window was empty. Mason tried to shake it off, but by noon, worry gnawed at him. He checked the alley behind the shop, the small park across the street, even the shelter where she once mentioned volunteering. No one had seen her. By closing time, he found the envelope she had left behind under the counter. His name was written on it in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was a note that read, "Mason, thank you for reminding me what kindness looks like when it's real. You gave me more than coffee and conversation. You gave me hope. I can't tell you everything yet, but please don't think this was goodbye. You'll understand soon. L." He read the letter 3 times, heart sinking. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt like losing someone all over again. For the next few days, Mason's world slipped back into gray. Without Lena, the cafe felt quieter, emptier. Even Hope noticed. "Daddy," she said one night, "do you think Miss Lena went home?" "I hope so, sweetheart," he replied softly, though he didn't believe it. Then, one Friday morning, everything changed. A black car pulled up outside, Bean and Blessings. Out stepped Lena, but she wasn't dressed like the woman he knew. Gone was the modest cardigan and faded jeans. In their place was a tailored navy suit, heels that clicked with confidence, and an air of quiet authority. Behind her stood two men in suits, one carrying a briefcase. Mason's jaw tightened in confusion. "Lena?" She smiled, but it wasn't the shy, uncertain smile he remembered. It was poised, professional. "Mason," she began, her voice steady but soft. "There's something I need to explain." She motioned for him to sit. The two men stepped forward, introducing themselves as representatives from Hartman Holdings. The name clicked instantly. Hartman Holdings was one of the largest private firms in the state, the kind that owned half the businesses in Ridgeview. Mason stared at her, realization dawning like a slow sunrise. "You're that Hartman," he whispered. Lena nodded. "Yes, I'm the CEO." Mason's heart pounded. He couldn't find the words. "So all this time you... Why?" She took a deep breath. "I needed to see something real, Mason. I built my company from my father's empire, but somewhere along the way, I lost touch with what mattered. So I started something called the Kindness Project. I visit small businesses anonymously, places where hearts lead before money does. I wanted to understand what compassion looks like when it's not for show. You showed me that." He was stunned. "So what was this? A test?" Her eyes softened. "At first, yes, but it became more than that. You reminded me what humanity feels like. You didn't know who I was, and you still cared." Mason turned away, trying to process it all. Part of him wanted to be angry, to feel used. But another part of him saw the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't gloating. She looked almost vulnerable. She handed him a folder. Inside were official documents, a proposal for a joint community cafe project funded by her company. Bean and Blessings would not only be saved but expanded, turned into a local kindness hub to support families and single parents in need. Mason looked up, speechless. "Why me?" Lena smiled faintly. "Because when I was a child, someone once told me that the people who give the most are often the ones who have the least left to give. You proved that true." Tears burned Mason's eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was standing at the edge of collapse. He felt seen. Over the next few months, Lena's promise became reality. The cafe grew, new machines, brighter walls, a small reading corner for kids that hope loved. The town rallied around it, inspired by the story of a single dad who gave kindness without expecting anything in return. But what Mason didn't expect was how his bond with Lena deepened. They worked side by side, mornings filled with laughter, late evenings spent planning charity events. The walls she had built slowly came down, revealing the same gentle woman who once sipped coffee by the window, looking lost. One afternoon, while helping decorate for the cafe's reopening, Mason found her standing alone again. This time, smiling softly as she watched Hope play with balloons. "You look happier than when I first met you," he said quietly. She turned to him, eyes shining. "I am, because I finally found a reason to stop running." The air between them carried something unspoken, the kind of connection that doesn't need words. It was fragile, but real. Months later, during the cafe's first charity event, Mason stood at the podium to thank everyone. His voice trembled as he said, "Sometimes, kindness comes back in ways we don't expect. I thought I was helping someone in need, but she was the one who saved me." Lena's eyes glistened from the crowd. For the first time, Mason felt whole again. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories that celebrate love, resilience, and the beauty of genuine kindness. Before the screen faded to black, the narrator's final words appeared. Comment below. Kindness never goes unnoticed. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can open the door to the biggest miracle of all.